Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is Dr. Halimah, and today's lecture is number 12. Now, as I said in my previous lecture, lecture number 11, the title of our lecture today is Linguistic Problems in Arabic-English Translation, Part 2. Grammatical Problems. This is the title of the lecture. Now, as usual, I'm going to go through the following points. First, the learning outcomes of our lecture. Then I will define to you what we mean by grammar, so that you understand what we mean by grammatical problems. And then I will illustrate and explain to you what we mean by grammatical translation problems, and I'll give you a number of issues, not all of them, but I will talk about the role and the function of numbers, the function of gender, and the function of person system, and the function of tense and aspect, and the function of passive voice when it comes to translation or translating from Arabic into English. And I will end this lecture, inshallah, by commenting on the importance of word order in translation. Okay? So let's start. Okay, now as usual, always ask yourself, what am I going to learn from this lecture? You can see, look, you should be able to recognize translation problems at grammatical levels. You should be able to say, okay, what kind of problems this is. Is it lexical, or is it grammatical, or is it textual? Textual it means discourse, a text, the whole text. If it is grammatical, you say to yourself, all right, is this what kind of grammatical problem is this? What kind of problem this is? Now, you should also be able to develop your own strategies to solve such kind of problems. As I mentioned in my previous lecture, lecture number 11, I'm not giving you strategies to solve problems, but I'm explaining to you some problems, some linguistic problems, lexical, grammatical problems. And when you know the type of problems you have, then hopefully, as a kind of learning in you, you should be able to discover for yourself, by yourself, the strategies you can use to solve a grammatical problem or a lexical problem in translation. That's why I mean you would develop your own strategies. Now, let's take point number 1, grammar. What is grammar? Grammar is a set of rules. Set of rules, a group of rules. It is a set of rules which determines the way in which units such as words and phrases can be combined together in a language. Means the grammar determines how words, how phrases can be combined together in a language. This is grammar. Now, grammar is normally organized along two dimensions, two main dimensions. When you are talking about grammar, you are talking about morphology and syntax. It's very important. Now, grammar, when you are thinking grammatical, you are thinking of morphology and syntax. These are technical terms, and you being an English language teacher or as a linguist or as a translator, you need to know such terms. Morphology means words. Syntax means grammar. But let's see what they cover. Morphology. What does morphology cover? As you can see, the structure of the words. As I said, morphology really has something to do with words. It deals with the structure of the words, the way in which the form of the word changes to indicate a specific contrast in a grammatical system. So they play a role in a grammar. The words, the structure of the word. Now look at this here, for instance, in English. Most nouns we have in English have two forms, a singular form and a plural form. Look, man, man, men, child, children, car, cars. So the role of morphology the role of morphology in a grammar or in the grammatical systems can be seen through these examples. I know this is a word, but when you add the S, a little morpheme S here, it becomes a plural. When you add this little morpheme REN to child, children. So you change a grammatical rule. Now instead of singular, it becomes a plural. And the whole structure of grammar changes. Instead of saying the child is crying or the child is playing around, and when you put it in a plural, you have to say the children are playing around. So it changed. It changed the whole structure of the sentence. And what makes it change? The morphology. This little morpheme, REN or E, the men, the plural, and the cars. So this is just an example of what morphology covers. You know, it changes. Now this is morphology. You need to be 100% sure what morphology means. You need to understand. If you don't understand the concept, what is meant by a concept, you cannot carry on. So you need to say, okay, I need to establish an understanding of all these terms. Morphology talks about the structure of words. Simple. Now let's move to syntax. Syntax, to be honest, is a modern term used instead of grammar. In the old days, in the 50s or in the 30s, before the revolution of linguistics, Chomsky, he's an American linguist, he came up with this linguistic theory, performance and competence. And since then, they have been using syntax instead, or as distinct from grammar. But to be honest, both of them, you know, grammar, syntax. But syntax is a modern way of looking at grammar. You understand? Now, let's see. look at it. Syntax covers what? The grammatical structure of groups, clauses, sentences. In what way? It means sentence. It looks at these grammatical structure of groups and clauses and sentences in a linear way. The linear sequence of such classes of words such as nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, and functional elements such as subjects, predicate, object, which are allowed in a given language. I'll put it to you very simply. Now, syntax has something to deal with the grammatical structure of groups, clauses, sentences. It has to do with the linear sequence of what? Classes of words. The words, classes of words, are the words nouns? Are they verbs? Are they adverbs? Are they adjectives? You know? So syntax look at them in a linear way. They look at subject, predicate, and object, or subject, verb, object, or subject, complement, or predicate, or and so on. So syntax covers all these aspects. We will come to it in more detail, but it is important to know what we mean by syntax. All right, so this is it in front of you, and it explains itself by itself. But you need to know what we mean by adjectives. We need to know what we mean by functional elements such as subject, predicate, and object, which are allowed in a given language. You understand? So you need to know all these terms. Don't memorize. You need to understand what we mean by grammatical structure of groups, of clauses, of sentence. You need to know what we mean by a sentence. You need to know what we mean by a clause. A clause is, I like coffee, I like tea, sorry, okay, coffee is all right, I drink coffee, but I like tea, Early Grey tea, more than coffee, or I like Early Grey tea, but I don't like Ahmad's tea. There is a brand in England called Ahmad's tea. Now, I like tea is a clause, but I don't like is another clause. So two clauses combined together with but makes a compound sentence. So you need to know all these elements of the language. The example I've given to you is just an example to explain to you what we mean by clauses. Now, due to lack of time, I can't go through every little term to explain to you. But you need to, you need to know all these terms. You need to know what we mean by sentence. What we mean by a sentence. Sentence is subject, verb, object. The weather is fine is sentence. I work 7 hours a day is a sentence. All right? So this is what we mean by syntax. But let's go through now. Now this is the problem. This is what matters to us as translators, all right? We need to see what kind of problems grammar could cause to a translator. Now, I have selected certain or the major categories that categories that would cause difficulties to translators. Why? Because of the differences in the grammatical structure of source and target languages. Grammatical structures in Arabic might cause difficulties to the translator who is translating these structures or these grammatical structures from Arabic into English. Why? Because in English they don't have such structures, and vice versa is correct. Now I have selected the major categories. Category number 1 is number. What do we mean by number? Now, not all languages really have the category of number. And even if languages have the concept of number, they don't seem to look at countability in the same way. We will find out. So, countability or numbers to Arabs probably, mean different things to an English person. Or the way we look at numbers may mean differently to an English person. Now, Arabic, for example, unlike English, we have a dual form. In Arabic, we have a dual form in addition to singular and plural. English doesn't have a dual form. Oh, I know you would say, all right, they say two, but it doesn't work like this. Now we have this example. Look at this example. Look at this example taken from an unpublished document about arbitration procedures in Cairo. Now look at this. How would you translate this? Is it easy? عندما يراد تعيين 3 محكمين يختار كل طرف محكما واحدا ويختار المحكمان المعينان على هذا النحو المحكم الثالث وهو الذي يتولى رئاسة هيئة التحكيم. Now, we have here duality in numbers. In English, if you are not really very, very good translator, you might not be able to do it successfully. But just I have translated this to you in an acceptable way acceptably. When the appointment of 3 arbitrators is required, each party selects one arbitrator. One arbitrator. The 2 arbitrators, as thus appointed, select the 3rd arbitrator, who then heads the arbitration committee. This is just an example about the importance of numbers when in translation. So you need to be careful. And let's move to gender here. This is a bit more difficult and more problematic. Now, what do we mean by gender? Gender is a grammatical distinction according to which a noun or pronoun is classified either masculine or feminine in some languages. Gender, it means in grammar you either use this pronoun for a female or a male. Now English doesn't have gender for second person pronoun. Do you understand? Now in English, okay, you say anta, you say you, but you don't know whether the you in front of you is a girl or is a boy. But in Arabic, when you say anta, I mean when you talk anta or anti, when you say anti, everybody in Arabic or who speaks Arabic understand that you are talking to a female. But in English, you won't be able to tell until they identify the person they are talking to by using he or she. You Hajar, now you Hajar is a good student. Now when you say Hajar or you Batul is a good student. When you say Batul means a female. You Ahmad is a good student. But in Arabic, أنت يا أحمد طالب مجتهد. أنت يا بتول طالبة مجتهدة. You see the difference. So gender is very important. But imagine, now we have in Arabic الناقة والبعير. الناقة is a female and البعير is a male. Now in English they don't have this. This is gender. You need to be careful about gender. Now we have this example. The following example in English, translated from English into Arabic, illustrates the kind of problems you would face when you are dealing with gender. Now, shampoo, this is an ad, this is an advertisement, or instructions, sorry. This is a piece of instruction given to the customer, to the user of the shampoo. Do this, don't do this. Now, shampoo, now what it says here, shampoo the hair with a mild Wella shampoo and lightly towel dry. This is how English people speak. Shampoo the hair. Now here, they are addressing you. And commercially, it is they want to sell the shampoo to men and women, you know, so they say shampoo the hair with a mild Wella shampoo and lightly towel dry. We don't know whether they are addressing women or men. Now look at how the Arabic translator translated it. Why? We will find out. Now يغسل الشعر بشامبو من ولا على أن يكون من نوع الشامبو الملطف ثم يجفف الشعر بواسطة المنشفة وذلك تجفيفا بسيطا ليترك الشعر رطبا. What did you notice? Huh? You notice that even in Arabic he avoided using the gender. Why? Because he doesn't want to exclude men from buying this shampoo. Because if he translated اغسلي شعرك or اغسل شعرك, huh? Now you can tell that right away that this shampoo is mainly addressed to men, or this shampoo is mainly addressed to women. Now to avoid this confusion and to be able to sell the shampoo to everyone, the translator or the company which asked him to translate asked him, look, make it in passive. We want to sell shampoo to men and women. Do you understand? So you need to look at gender this way. It's a very tricky problem. All right? This is just a brief example. Now the translator uses passive voice to avoid using gender because he doesn't want to restrict the sale of the shampoo to men or women. Okay? Now, another example of grammatical problems in translation is the person system. The person system relates to the notion of participant's role. In English we have first person, I, we. Second person, you. Third person, he, she, it, they. In Arabic, the person system has both gender and number dimension. In Arabic, they go together, the number and the gender. Now we have hunna. Hunna is plural, they. But they in English could be female, could be males. But in Arabic, hunna, it is definitely women or females. Antum. Antum in Arabic means men or males. In English, you for singular you, second, and second plural you. In Arabic, look, antum, antunna. So in Arabic we have both the gender and the number. You need to think of this when it comes down to translation. Again, it's not only that. Some languages, like French, the dimension of formality and politeness plays a role in translating. You need to be careful. If you know French and you want to translate from French into English, or from French into English, or from French into Arabic, or from Arabic into French, really you need to think of this dimension as well. Now in French they use different pronouns. Vous, vous is for politeness. Tu is for informal. Vous êtes belle, tu es belle. You understand? So this is an example of the role of person system in translation. You need to be careful about this. Now, this is the tough aspect of a grammar. This is the toughest. When we are talking about the grammatical problems, you need to think tense and aspect. Tense and aspect are grammatical categories in a large number of languages. Most languages have this tense and aspect. Now the form of the verb in such languages indicates two types of information. The verb. Now we are talking about the verb. Now the verb has time relations and aspectual differences. Now the verb really determines the tense and the aspect. You need to look at the time dimension and the aspectual differences. Now what do we mean by time relations when we are looking at verbs? Time relations really have to do with locating an event in time. It means when did it happen? How often does it happen? When will it happen? When did it happen? In other words, time relations have to do with locating an event in the time, like past, present, and future. Is the message I'm translating, is it in the past? Is it in the present? Is it in the future? You need to identify it first. Okay? Now this is very important. Now if we move to the second point, aspect. The aspectual differences have to do with the temporal distribution of an event. For instance, is the event, or is the time of the event complete, or is it not complete? Is it continuous or not continuous? Is it momentary? In other words, now you are looking, is it past, present, simple? Is it past, future, present? Now, the aspectual dimension of the verb, you need to say, okay, is it present continuous? Continuous. Is it present perfect continuous? Is it past continuous? Is it past perfect continuous? So you need to look at the aspect from this angle, the distribution, the temporal distribution of the event. Okay? So this is very important. Time relation, aspectual differences. Very important when it comes to translation. Now, this is the most difficult aspect of grammatical problems in translation, and to be honest, in learning English as a foreign language, especially for Arabs, Arabic-speaking students. Now, voice, what do we mean by voice? Voice is a grammatical category which defines the relationship between a verb and its subject. The relationship between verb and subject, subject-verb. Now, the main function of the passive voice in English and a number of other languages is to avoid specifying the agent and to give an impression of objectivity. Really, people use in English, mainly in English, use voice or passive voice to avoid specifying the agent and to show to you that, look, we are objective. We are not mentioning the subject or the agent. For example, in active clauses, opposite of subject of passive, the subject is the agent responsible for performing the action. In passive clauses, it means sentences, the subject is affected entity and the agent may or may not be specified depending on the structures available in each language. Now this example, look at this. This gives you an idea about what we mean by active and what we mean by passive. Now active, look at this A. Mr. Al-Shihri opened Ibn al-Jawzi Hall in 1993. This is active. Look. Subject, verb, object. And voice defines the relationship between the subject and the verb. Passive, look at passive. Ibn al-Jawzi Hall was opened in 1993. By who? We deleted Mr. Al-Shihri because we are not interested in him. We are being objective. We don't want to specify the agent. We don't want to mention the agent. We are being objective and we don't want to mention who opened it. But now, if you want to be specific about the agent or the person who opened it, then you would say, this is Ibn al-Jawzi Hall was opened in 1993 by Mr. Al-Shihri. Full stop. You know? So this is just an example of, active example and passive example. Now, rendering a passive structure by an active structure, or conversely, an active structure by a passive structure in translation can have very serious implications for the amount of information given in the clause, the linear arrangement of semantic elements such as the agent and affected and the focus of the message. Now, when you are translating and you move and you want to reverse, in other words, you want to converse from active into passive, you have to be sure, you have to be 100% sure that this is the right approach, because you might be losing a lot of information, It is active and you put it in passive, this is very serious. Now you have to make sure that when you put it in passive, you don't lose information. And when it is passive, don't put it in active to add information. So you need to be careful. I know Arabic starts with the verbs before the subject. يأكل الولد. In English, the boy eats. So you need to be careful about this when you are rendering a piece of information from active into passive or from passive into active. Okay. Now the last point, as I promised, is word order. Word order is a phenomenon in English. Is very important. You need to understand it very well. Why? Because it signals the relationship between elements in the clause. You can tell the relationship between between the elements of the clause from the order. You look at the order of the words: subject, verb, object. Wow, the subject, verb, object. This is the order. Now, word order in English is relatively fixed. Compare this example, for instance. The man ate the fish. The man ate the fish. The man, subject, ate, verb, fish, object. Now the fish ate the man. You know how important word order is? The fish ate the man. If you change if you put the fish here and you take the man and put it at the back, at the end, so the word order is fixed in English, and it changes the meaning of the sentence or the clause. Now Arabic doesn't have fixed word order. Why? Because it has an elaborate case inflections. It is a matter of stylistic variation. It is available as a resource to signal emphasis and contrast and to organize message in a variety of ways. In Arabic, because of the inflectional system we have, فعل, فاعل, يفعل, متفاعل, all these are inflections. You need يضرب, ضرب, يضربنا. All these are inflections. You can manipulate the word order. ضرب الولد الحجر. You see, so you need to. In Arabic is a different system. It is not as fixed. The word order in Arabic is not as fixed as the word order in English. So word order is extremely important in translation. You know, because it plays a major role in maintaining coherence and in the text. So you will have a coherent point of view when you are reading something or you're reading a message because of the word order, and it orientates the message at the text level as well. So you look at the message and you see the order. In English it's fixed. In Arabic you can manipulate it because of the inflectional system we have. So I hope by now you have an idea about the linguistic problems, part 2, mainly grammatical problems in translations. And thank you very much indeed, and I wish you all the best, and see you next lecture number 13 and 14. Thank you.